at Nexus. This will include what we expect versus what we actually receive from our contributors. I will also discuss how developing for an open source project is different and how does it compares to develop for a proprietary development project. This is not intended to be a Git talk, but I will use some Git concepts and some GitHub features. Now, to begin, we should first ask, what is an open source project and why is it better than proprietary code? The term open source refers to software that can be used, modified, and distributed by anyone. Much of the software we use every day is open source. You might already know this, but Apache, OpenSSL, MariaDB, Linux Core, and even .NET from Microsoft are now open source projects. This means our favorite software feature might be created by someone like you, like any of you, an external developer contributing to an open source project. In this way, even a small developer can find a way to help millions. Please. Here, Mantendo 2 is one successful story for contribution collaboration. There are tons of contributors and pull requests, and most of them are accepted. Ben Marks has been talking today about this, and I think it's really important for you to understand how an open source project works. This means we, the developers, are helping build better software, not only for us, but for the entire Mantendo community. I think this is why effective contributors get involved in the creation processes of the software we use every day. If we know the software we are using inside out, we can help merchants and developers to use it correctly. We can even make better implementations, in my opinion. Again, I would prefer to always use code I can test and modify myself, because I have learned that depending totally on support or other developers can slow the development process to a miserable crawl. Now imagine this. You are developing a module or a store, and you have to wait 1 or 2 days for a support to answer your question about a particular module. Now, imagine you can't make any modification to that code in particular because it's encrypted proprietary code. The likely result is a delayed feature, or even worse, a complete refactor. We don't want to do this because time is money for us. We are developers, and the less time we took to develop something, the better it is for everyone. Now, ideally, programmers with access to a program source code can improve that program by tuning it to their needs or fixing bugs. The biggest difference, in my opinion, between proprietary code and open source code is that anyone can modify open source code, but only some can modify proprietary code. Now, in terms of code quality, open source usually trumps over proprietary code. Because contributors can view the code, they have a better grasp on its feature and functionality. Now, let's turn to the module we are talking about today, Nexus Supertime. Those are some of our weekly stats. As you may see, we have a lot of unique visitors, a lot of cloners, a lot of views. Supertime is not a small module. We have more than 170 forks, 370 stars, 28 releases, 700 closed issues, and 90 closed pull requests, and more than 27 contributors. That's a lot in a project. Remember the last time you were in a team for like over 30 guys? We use Git for version controlling and GitHub for its issue and pull request system. We also use the wiki for documentation, and we have an integration with Travis CI for tests. For those of you who are wondering what it all means, I will be defining those terms shortly. I'll try to define now what issue means. An issue is the best way to tell us, the open source developers, what is going on with the extension. An issue is the equivalent of a ticket in a regular development project. It can be a bug you found, a new feature you want, or an improvement. Anyone can create and answer an issue. That's really important in an open source model because it's not only the developers answering the contributors or the users, but users helping other users. I like to think it's a group of like-minded individuals working towards one goal, otherwise known as a community. An issue is not a place to scream or vent at the developers like me or my friends working with me, because you don't want to read the wiki or educate yourself about known issues, or to remind us every hour on the hour that you have theme issues or incompatibilities with our extensions. We already know the default extension is not working with every theme and module in the market. Only in Magento Connect, we have more than 6,000 extensions and counting. In a perfect world, we would like to help everyone all of the time, every time. In this world, we have limited resources and we cannot assign the priority of highest to each and every issue. It's very much the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This means a new feature release is more important than a single outlying issue for only one or maybe two contributors or users. This might be potentially frustrating, but it's critical to keep this in mind when contributing to any open source project, not only two per time. This is really, really important to remark because we know you have problems, we know we might be slowing your process down, but then if you are the only one experiencing an issue, it might be because the problem is on your side and not in the model itself. Please keep this in mind when using any open source project. Now, the two tentpoles of a healthy community is common sense and mutual respect. This is really important for me. Together, they allow one user solution to help others. They also prevent extra noise, focusing the developers on the big problems and not only in one or two user problems. As developers, we work hard to solve as many issues as we can. For this, we need prompt, accurate feedback from our contributors. This means for every issue you post, we need to know if you are using the latest stable release or using Devel. I will explain later what Devel is. We need to know your version of Mantendo and any other installed modules that may conflict with 2 per time. In this case in particular, any other cache modules might be something we need to know if you are having issues. Your server configuration and software versions also matter because, for example, now we have Varnish 2, 3, and 4. We are trying to support 3 and 4 and trying to leave back the Varnish 2, but then some people are still using it. Now, without this information, we can't reproduce the issues. If we can't see the problem, well, logically, we cannot fix it. Let's see what a perfect issue and pull request look like. This is a pull request created by Alan Storm. Alan Storm is one of the most known developers in the Mantendo ecosystem. As you might see, this issue is really detailed. You can see everything we need. It's a scenario, some cases he saw, and then where in the code he thinks the issue is happening. Then again, there are some more references, some issues, and the code. This is the code we need to know, this is the code we need to see, and this is the contribution he made for us. Now, we also rely on feedback. Sometimes we need to know more before seeking for a solution. We are never shy about requesting more information, and we have a lot of issues. We close issues after 10 days without feedback. If we close your issue, don't be afraid to ask again, or if the issue arises elsewhere, please let us know. Issues can be opened and closed again and again until we found a solution or when the issue arises elsewhere. Now, issues are not the only way to contribute to an open source project. Pull requests are another, and they are one of my favorite things to see. A pull request is when an outsider developer sends us code. It might be a new feature, bug fixes, or a combination of modifications, new features, and bugs. It is basically an outsider doing pro bono or free work in an effort to help us and help the community. It is always appreciated. The process for a pull request is pretty simple. First, you fork the repository in your own account. Then you make your modifications or adds, and you push it to your GitHub repository. This is really important because you don't push directly to the Nexus official repository. You fork the repository in your own account, and you do the modifications and changes there. Now, once you are fine with your own changes, you can create a pull request between forks. This means a pull request between your version of the module and the 2-per-team version of the module. This is really important because the code you are using must be up to date with the code we have in production or in our branches. Now, as I told you before, you use Travis for tests and integrations. Once everything is passing, you will see a green sign, and I will see as an administrator of the repository that I'm able to merge the code. Now, once everything is ready, I can merge it, and then congratulations, you are a contributor. Now, in my opinion, issues are problems and suggestions. Pull requests are always solutions. If you create a pull request and you fix someone else's problem, you are my hero, actually. Now, we have a lot of issues. Only today, we closed 4 issues between me and the other guy, which is Harik, helping me and Nexus to maintain 2 per time. We use labels. Labels help us describing and track tickets. They also can show users the status of their issues, and pull requests. With GitHub, the platform we use, we can customize our labels and add multiple labels to a single issue, making it easier to track for the entire community and for the upcoming contributors, users, anything. Now, as I stated earlier, we currently have 170 forks, which is 170 guys trying to help us, and 90 closed pull requests. Only this week, we closed another 10, I think. We check every single one for issues, conflicts, and other undesirables. It takes time to do it right, and we always try to do it right. We use continuous integration tests hosted on Travis CI to check syntaxes and style, but we manually test the new code to ensure its compatibility with the old one. This is time-intensive for one pull request, but keep in mind we are usually processing multiple concurrent pull requests while also working on other issues and new features. Once submitted, rest assured we will get to it. We will test it, and if it passes, we will try to merge it with our code. Now, so far, this seems like any project you are working. Most of you developers are working like every day in different projects. You have your own task, a list of issues, a branch, and some people or stakeholders watching your progress. There is one difference, in my opinion, between proprietary development and open source development. There is no owner here in open source projects. Nexus is the owner of the module, legally speaking, but then the community is the real owner of this module in particular when it's open source. In practice, most users and contributors are not Nexus employees. This is really important to know. Anyone can be a stakeholder or a customer in an open source project, and their interests can be very different among each other. With so many stakeholders, an unprepared open source developer can lose his head or his mind. To stay organized, we use Git and GitHub to manage 3 key elements: branches, licenses, and the wiki. We use different branches to test and develop new features. This is a pretty common standard here in the industry, and we use master as our latest stable production-ready release, and then we use devel, which acts much like a beta release. Also, we use devel branch for each new feature in development. For example, for the upcoming Varnish 4 compatibility, we are using Varnish devel/Varnish 4. That's how we manage stuff here. Normally, is it safe to use code here? In Devel, I mean, as long as you have some tolerance for issues common to beta environments. We encourage contributors to explore and test it before we merge it with master. This means we are expecting for all of the users to contribute with us to make the code as best as we can. When we are ready to use the code from Devel, we create a pull request and merge it with the master branch. The same goes for feature branches. After that, we tag the release to ensure its compatibility with Composer and FireGento, and then we publish all changes to the changelog file. We also use this opportunity to give credit to all of the contributors, and then we also support Magento Connect for installation. Let's talk about licenses now. Using them and choosing them is always complicated. This code in particular is licensed under GPL v2+, but much of the code is taken from another module which was licensed in GPL v3. In simple terms, you might copy, distribute, and modify the code as you see fit, as long as you track all changes and dates in the source files. Any modifications to our code made by a compiler or GPL licensed code must be made available under GPL license, which is the same license we are using, and include build and install instructions. Finally, we turn to the wiki. We use this GitHub feature as a place to host our documentation. This allows us to present and organize information about Tubertan in one place for all the contributors to see it, making life easier for us and for our users. We have several sections like installation, configuration, usage, frequently answered questions, and one of the most important to read, ESI cache policies. Now, nearly every issue and pull request eventually finds its way into the documentation. You are doing yourself a disservice if you don't pay attention to the issues and pull requests. If you take your time to learn the open issues and pull requests, it only helps the community, in my opinion. It frees some time to the developers to develop it, actually, instead of answering the same question over and over again. I will say this again. Always take a look to the pull requests and open issues. It's really important for us because we try to keep the documentation up to date, but then from time to time, we have some issues to take care of and some pull requests to make, and it might take a while until with the new features or some known issues made their way into the documentation. Issues and pull requests fill in the gaps by highlighting the solutions created by the community. Now, in closing, developing an open source project is one of the best things I have ever done. You meet some people like much of you developing new features and trying to help people with their problems. As core developers, we love working with our contributors, who make our lives easier by fixing bugs and submitting new pull requests or features. I think we are part of a bigger ecosystem, and we only merge and moderate the repository while the customers or the users or the contributors send us code or fix issues for us. Here at Nexus, we host thousands of sites, but we don't directly develop them. This is really important. We're a hosting company and not a development agency. These sites we host are administrated by our customers, logically, and they usually talk to me or the other developers and tell us what they need to do, what they need as new features, and what is working and what is not. Our vision is not always the best, and if we are successful, it is because we are up to our clients' needs. I also think the more contribution a project has, the better for the code quality. We are only 2 developers now in the core Tuber team. But then we are over 30 guys helping to maintain this particular open source extension. The community, in my opinion, is the cornerstone of code quality. Now, I encourage you to contribute to your favorite open source project. It doesn't have to be super tiny, it doesn't have to be Linux. You can find a small project and contribute to it. The first time you contribute, you might be rejected. There are some rules to follow, there are some syntaxes to check, but then if you stick to it and learn from the project, the contributions will always be accepted, and it's really important because we appreciate each and every contributor and each and every contribution. If you don't want to start directly with a pull request to a project, you can always answer a few questions in Magento Stack Exchange or in the new Magento forums. That's a part of a community too. It is amazing how much one can learn while answering to the other guys or developing other contributor needs. Core developers can't know everything. As a user of Tubertine or any other open source project, you have an opportunity to take an active role in the development process of the open source extension you are using. You can create a solution not only for you, but for every member of the community. Now, this is the end of the talk. Now I want to thank the entire team of Tubertine at Nexus. I want to thank the sales team too, and I want to thank Carlos and his wife for this amazing conference. If you have any questions, this is time to ask. I do understand Portuguese, but then I will try to do my best to answer in English.